Chapter 6, Section 2, Adding and Subtracting Rational Numbers. A couple of important pieces of information. When you add fractions with like denominators, you add the numerators together and the denominator stays the same. And then over here, when you subtract rational numbers, subtract fractions with like denominators, you subtract the numerators and the denominator stays the same. Lesson exercise 2 is in your homework assignment, and it says a fifth grader thinks that 1/2 plus 1/3 equals 2/5. Easy mistake, common mistake there, adding the numerators and adding the denominators. How would you convince the students that 2/5 is not the right answer? So I created these little strips that you've seen me use before. So 1/2 would be this much of this strip, okay? And then 1/3, 1/3, if we cut this into thirds, would be these two, okay? And if I add those together, kind of use the counting on method, we could see that the answer we should come up with is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sixths. All right. So compare that. Sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty here. Compare that with, I've taken this strip and divided it into fifths. And 2/5 would look like this. All right. So there's one way, just kind of visually comparing these two lengths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2/5. Again, doesn't make sense that these two would equal that. So that might be one way that you would explain that. In example 1, it says draw a fraction bar for 1/2 and 1/3. So I did that over here. 1/2 and then 1/3, except I already cut that one, okay? And draw a fraction bar with the least common denominator. That would be 6, okay? That's what I did down here is what I was showing you, okay? And show the steps to compute 1/2 plus 1/3. So that's kind of what I was doing here, and seeing that 1/2 plus 1/3, again with the shaded fraction bar, should be 5/6, or with common denominators should be 5/6. Okay. Another one that is in your homework is lesson exercise 3, and this one says draw a fraction bar for 1/2. So again, looking at how many squares do I need here? The least common denominator is 4, so here's 1/2. Okay. And then 1/4, okay? And 1/4 would look like this. Okay. Draw a fraction bar for the sum of 1/2 and 1/4 and tell why the common denominator is needed. Okay. So again, if I'm going to put these two together, I need them to be in the same relationship. So I have the same size chunks in terms of putting these two things together. So when I put this on here like this, again, I can see that that's 3/4. All right. And so it talks about, again, showing the steps to compute that. So that's the general idea there. Again, if we can make them the same size, then I can add onto it like this, and I can see how many parts of a whole it is. Right. In the next box, the importance of adding rational numbers with unlike denominators. And to add those, it says rename each fraction with the least common denominator. or the least common multiple of the denominators. Add the fractions using the addition rule for like denominators. So after we get the common denominators, we can use the rules that we were using before. In this last lesson exercise here on this page, lesson exercise 4, it says, what is the least common denominator of 4x and 6? And we can do that by the whole prime factors sort of method, right? Except, of course, here we've got like an extra one, which is x, and then 2, and then 3, all right? So we would need 2 squared times 3 times x, or 2 squared is 4, times 3 is 12x. And then it says compute the addition. So we'd have 3 over 4x plus 5 over 6. In order to make this denominator here into 12x, I'd have to multiply it by 3. Whatever I multiply the bottom by, I have to multiply the top by also. In this one, I'd have to multiply the bottom by 2x. So I have to do that on the top also. So now I've got 9 over 12x plus 10x over 12x, or 10x plus 9 all over 12x. On page 276, talks about the similarity between adding things with unlike denominators and subtracting things with unlike denominators. Across the page here, it goes into the rule like it did previously. Excuse me. Allergies. And lesson exercise 6 says compute 3/20 minus 1/12. All right, so again, we could think through the process of the least common denominator of 20 and 12. We could use our calculator. We could do the prime factorization. And 12, what do we got with 12? 2 and 6 and 2 and 3. So what would we need? 2 squared times 3 times 5. So 60. All right. And so from there, 3/20 minus 1/12. Again, to get them each to have the common denominator of 60, this one I'd have to multiply by 3 over 3. This one by 5 over 5. So we've got 9/60 minus 5/60 equals 4/60, which we could reduce by dividing the top and the bottom by 4. And that would be 1/15 in lowest terms. The next section talks about adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Again, the need to either get to get common denominators for sure. Talks about 2 ways to do that. The regrouping method, where if your fraction here is not large enough